since we went to the most unique ecosystem, I think we need to go to the one that's probably in the most danger, and that's the Hempstead Plains. Even before probably my parents lived on Long Island, there was, I'm even talking before the 1900s, right? There were, try to remember, 60,000 acres of prairie on Long Island. Now nobody thinks of prairie and Long Island together. Prairie's somewhere out in the Midwest, and there's tall grasses as high as, what is it, the song, corn is as high as an elephant's eye. The corn the grasses were over 6 to 8 feet tall. We even had some of that on Long Island. But because of the development, they didn't even think about these being special places for animals and plants to live. They just thought of it as in the way. We have to develop, we have to build, just get rid of this stuff. And before they knew it, we are now down to a few acres. Now, for people who don't know what an acre is, it's about the size of a football field or a soccer field. So we may have this, maybe the size of 6 or 7 football fields or soccer fields put together left over. And it's being protected by the Friends of the Hempstead Plains right on the grounds of Nassau Community College in Uniondale. And it's the last place that you can go and see a prairie on Long Island. Now what is a prairie? You might call it a forest of grasses. Instead of the natural air being controlled by trees, the dominant or the most common plant are grasses. Purple blue stem, little blue stem switchgrass, which is one of the ones that can grow 6 feet tall. So the grasses dominate, and along with it the most beautiful wildflowers, including endangered ones like bird's foot violets. So, and some of the ones people know like brown-eyed Susans and evening primrose grow. There's some of the most beautiful flowers. And with this kind of open habitat, which doesn't have trees to cover the sun, you know, it's getting bathed in sunlight most of the time in good weather. Even in the winter, it's still getting bathed by sunlight. By then the plants have died back. But because of that, it's a little drier, a little hotter. You stand out in a field rather than a forest. So that controls some of the life that lives in the field there, or the grassland, or the prairie as they called it. They call it the Hempstead Plains. Plains is a word for a place that's dominated by grasses. And the type of wildlife you might find in a grassland or prairie versus a forest would be more things like grasshoppers. Makes sense, grasshoppers that have lots of butterflies. They need flowers, bees, certain birds that would only go to fields. Like there's an endangered, I think it's called the grasshopper sparrow. It's endangered. It only lives in prairies and grasslands. But we get some of the birds that we see. There'll be hawks flying over, like red-tailed hawks. Great place to look for food in an open field. Foxes, deer, some of the same animals might come into a field. But it's very specific to animals that need flowers and grasses and things like that to survive. Burrowing animals might live there, like rabbits and mice, although our rabbits don't burrow a lot. Mice, I'm trying to think what else might live in a field. Woodchucks, things like that. Box turtles might wander through. So it would be more sun-loving creatures rather than shade-loving creatures, and sun-loving plants rather than shade-loving plants. Because the only protection is the grasses and the plants that are there. And my hope is that that last remnant gets saved forever. They're building an education center there now. It's pretty cool. So I think that covers the Hempstead Plains. So now I want you to imagine that this prairie that was once on Long Island covered from Queens all the way to the Nassau-Suffolk border. And it went from what we would now call Jericho Turnpike, or Route 25, all the way down to Hempstead Turnpike. So the word we can use for plains or prairies that covers all these kinds of ecosystems all over the world are grasslands.